Greetings viewers, this is the Mathinator coming at you once again, and on this video I will be doing the SAT practice test number 3, the math portion that allows the calculator. So hopefully you've gone to the collegeboard.org website and you have downloaded practice test number 3 and you are ready to work the problems out along with me. Now, one of the most important things to remember when it comes to taking the SAT or any type of test is to make sure you read each question carefully. All right, they don't try to trick you, but they do try to really test you to make sure you really know what you're doing. So make sure you read each question carefully. Pay special attention if you are given a graph or a table that goes along with it. Make sure you pay attention to what is given you in the word problem. Make sure you understand how do I go about finding the right answer? How do I know when I have the correct answer? How do I know when I have fully answered the question? And of course, the more you practice, the better you will get. All right, because it's really about understanding math concepts. Okay, the SAT is all about concepts, at least on the math portion. So there is a broad range of concepts that you need to know. So let's go ahead and get into this. I will be reading each question once, and then as I solve it, I don't just want to solve that particular question, but talk about the concept that is involved and give a little bit of an explanation, because of course you're not going to get the same exact questions, but you will get the same type of topic. So let's go ahead and get into this. The graph above shows Marilyn's distance from her campsite during a 3-hour hike. She stopped for 30 minutes during her hike to have lunch. Based on the graph, which of the following is closest to the time she finished lunch and continued her hike? All right, so we're looking at distance from the campsite versus time. So we have to understand that she's getting further and further away as time goes on. Now, how do we know her lunch? Well, it says she stopped for 30 minutes. So we have to understand stopping for 30 minutes is going to be a flat portion on the graph. So this is her stopping for 30 minutes right here. And what is closer to the time that she finished lunch? Well, as we look at that, it's definitely past 1 o'clock. It looks to be about past the halfway point, so it's past 1:30, but not quite 2 o'clock. So what looks like past 1:30, but not quite to 2 o'clock is choice C, 1:40 p.m. The table above shows the distribution of age and gender for 25 people who entered a contest. If the contest winner will be selected at random, what is the probability that the winner will be either a female under age 40 or a male age 40 or older? All right, so these probabilities, when we talk about that and we see our answer choices, all fractions, in the denominator of the fraction is going to be the population that you are choosing from, or the sample size. So it says we are choosing a contest winner selected at random. So it's choosing from the entire population. So 25 is going to be our denominator. Now, what is the probability that the winner will be either a female under age 40 or a male age 40 or older? So that means for the females, we're looking at those who are under age 40. So females under age 40 is right here, or male age 40 or older. So our males age 40 or older are right here. So that is what we're looking for, the probability of those selections out of the entire population or the sample that we're choosing from. So the numerator is going to be the total of those two selections right there, 10 out of 25, which is answer choice B. The graph below shows the total number of music album sales in millions each year from 1997 through 2009. Based on the graph, which of the following best describes the general trend in music album sales from 1997 through 2009? So on questions like this, now we need to not only read the question carefully, but make sure we read each answer choice carefully. So sales generally increased each year since 1997. Well, we have to understand on graphs and increasing, we have years and sales, that a general increase each year would mean it continues to go up all the way until 1997. It does not do that. So the correct answer is not A. Sales generally decreased each year since 1997. Well, if that is true, then we would have a downward all the way. We do not have that. Sales increased until 2000 and then generally decreased. Well, let's look at that. 2000 is going to be 3 years after 1997. So that means it would go up to that point and then down from there, which it does. It does indeed do that. So C And then D, sales generally remain steady. Well, steady would just be a horizontal line. The table above shows some values of the linear function f. Which of the following defines f? Well, we have a table, and we want to see which one of those equations matches the data in that table. So what we need to do here is find out the slope. All right, very common when we have our xy table, but instead of x and y, we have n and f of n. So once we find out our slope, that will tell us which answer choice is correct because each slope is different. So slope, I'm going to pick this point and this point. So let's look at our slope. y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. That is 6 divided by 2, which equals 3. And so the only answer choice with the slope of 3 is C. F of n equals 3n minus 5. At Lincoln High School, approximately 7% of enrolled juniors and 5% of enrolled seniors were inducted into the National Honor Society last year. If there were 562 juniors and 602 seniors enrolled at Lincoln High School last year, which of the following is closest to the total number of juniors and seniors at Lincoln High School last year who were inducted into the National Honor Society? All right, so a lot of wording there. What is it asking us? How do we know when we have the correct answer? Well, it's really all that wording is to ask us, what is 7% of 562 plus 5% of 602? So let's go ahead and look at it. There were 562 juniors, and 7% of them were inducted into National Honor Society. So multiply that by 7%. Plus, there were 602 seniors, and 5% of them were inducted into the National Honor Society. And that is the total we're looking for. Now, we are allowed to use our calculators, but before we go to our calculator, let's talk about some mental math. Okay. And being able to do percentages quickly in your head is a big help. All right, we want to know what is 5% of 602. Well, one way we could approach this is to say, well, I know 10% of 602 is going to be 60. 5% is going to be half of that. So 5% of 602 is going to be right about 30. Now, our other one, we want to know what is 7% of 562. Well, let's round 562. Let's round that up to 600. 7 times 6 is 42, so 7% times 600 is going to be 42. And now 7% of 562 is going to be a little less than that, but if we add these two up, 42 and 30 comes out to 72. We round it up, or we estimate it a little above, so the true answer is going to be a little less than that. The closest one that's a little less than that is going to be 69. And of course, yes, if you go to your calculator, the answer will be 69 is the closest number. All right, which of the following is the sum of the two polynomials shown above? So polynomial addition. All right, first of all, when we are adding polynomials, we just want to combine like terms, which means our exponents do not change. So we can rule out C and D. All right, it really helps us when we can rule out obviously wrong answer choices. Our exponents do not change. Now, let's look at, we have 3 and 5, that's going to be 8x squared. Then we have negative 5 plus negative 2, which is going to be a negative 7x. And already now that eliminates B, and we see that our answer is A. If 3/5 of W equals 4/3, what is the value of W? So we just have a straight up linear equation here, solving for W, which means we're going to have W is going to equal 4/3 times 5/3, okay? Just multiplying by the reciprocal. And now when we are multiplying fractions, we know we multiply across. So 4 times 5 is 20. Multiply across the numerator, multiply across the denominator. Our answer is 29. The average number of students per classroom at Central High School from 2000 to 2010 can be modeled by the equation y equals 0.56x plus 27.2, where x represents the number of years since 2000 and y represents the average number of students per classroom. Which of the following best describes the meaning of the number 0.56 in the equation? All right, so let's understand we have y equals mx plus b. All right, so m is our slope, so 0.56 is going to be our slope, and our slope is a rate of change. All right, so a rate of change, it's not going to be the total number. All right. Plus, that doesn't even make sense to say that 0.56 is the total number of students, okay? All right, the average number of students per classroom. Again, to say that your average number of students is 0.56, all right, again, the 0.56 is a rate of change, so it's not going to be the average number. The estimated increase in the average number of students per classroom each year. All right, it does not say rate of change, but it does say estimated increase each year. That is a rate, all right? So that is going to be our rate of change right there. And again, just reading answer choice D, the estimated difference between the average number of students per classroom in 2010 and in 2000. Again, that doesn't even make sense. Plus, we've already established that C is our correct answer because we're talking about a rate of change. Nate walks 25 meters in 13.7 seconds. If he walks at this same rate, which of the following is closest to the distance he will walk in 4 minutes? So this is a kind of general arithmetic type problem, but also we're talking about ratios, all right? If Nate walks 25 meters in 13.7 seconds, what I want to do is multiply by 10 to get rid of that decimal and say he walks 250 meters in 137 seconds. And so that's going to be equal. We're going to set up a proportion to say how far will he walk in 4 minutes. So 250 meters in 137 seconds is going to be how many meters, and now 4 minutes is 240 seconds. All right, we have to have all same units. Now let's look at understanding proportions. Okay, the ratio of 137 to 240 has to be the same as 250 to x. 240 is let's just say roughly 1.5 times 137. So that x needs to be about 1.5 times 250. We know it's not going to be 1400. That's way too high. 700. That is way too high. All right. What about 150? Well, the number over there has to be greater than 250 because 240 is greater than 137. And without doing any math here, just some understanding of numbers, we have eliminated all of our incorrect answer choices and come up with the correct one of B. And of course, if you really want to work it out in your calculator, cross multiply. So we have 250, make this look a little better, 250 times 240, that's going to equal 137x. So if we divide that by 137, it will give us our answer for x. Okay. The chart above shows approximations of the acceleration due to gravity in meters per second squared for the 8 planets in our solar system. The weight of an object on a given planet can be found by using the formula W equals mg, where W is the weight of the object measured in newtons, and m is the mass of the object measured in kilograms, and g is the acceleration due to gravity on the planet measured in meters per second squared. What is the weight in newtons of an object on Mercury with a mass of 90 kilograms? So this one is a straight up substitution, and we're going to be solving for our unknown. So we don't know what the weight is, but we know that the weight is equal to the mass, all right, 90, times the acceleration due to gravity, and on Mercury, that is 3.6. Now, we could go to our calculator, but again, 90 times 3.6, if we set up our equation, set up our formula properly, it can't be 25. 90 times 3.6 is not going to be less than 90. It's not going to be less than 90. What about 101? Well, 90 times 3 is 270. 90 times 4 is 360. We could have just gone to that right there. So between 270 and 360, only D makes sense, 324. So once again, we solved it. Did not even have to use our calculator. An object on Earth has a weight of 150 newtons. On which planet would the same object have an approximate weight of 170 newtons? All right, so what we could do is say that 150 newtons equals 9.8, the acceleration due to gravity, times the mass of that object on Earth, divide out, solve for m, and then say that 170 is equal to g times whatever that m is. All right, we could do that. We can bypass that two-step process or that doing two separate equations and just say that 150 is to 9.8, and just set up a proportion, as 170 is to whatever the acceleration due to gravity. So now, 170 is slightly larger than 150. So the G that we're looking for can't be Venus because that's less than 9.8. We're going to looking for a number that's slightly more than 9.8. Saturn, 11.1. That sounds very tempting. Uranus, 10.7. Those two are close, so we don't know which one. Neptune is too high. So now we're in a situation where it really would be in our best interest now to say that 150G is going to equal 170 times 9.8. So our G is going to be 170 times 9.8 divided by 150. And what that's going to come out to the 10th place, that equals 11.1. So 11.1 is Saturn. If the function f has 5 distinct zeros, which of the following could represent the complete graph of f in the xy plane? All right, so this one right here is all about understanding polynomial functions and the graphs of polynomial functions, and understanding that the zeros are the x-intercepts. All right, the zeros are where the graph interacts with the x-axis when we talk about real zeros. Okay. So let's look at A. We're going to count the number of times the graph crosses the x-axis. 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's not A. We're looking for 5 interactions with the x-axis. B, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's not B. C, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's not C. That leaves us with D. And let's go ahead and count. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. And then where it touches and turns around is our 5th zero. H equals negative 16t squared plus vt plus k. The equation above gives the height h in feet of a ball t seconds after it is thrown straight up with an initial speed of v feet per second from a height of k feet. Which of the following gives v in terms of h, t, and k? All right, so these type of problems pop up a lot where we have a formula or an equation and we're going to rearrange it to solve for a different unknown. So isolating that t, or isolating that v, all right, so we have that h over there. We need to add 16t squared. We need to subtract k, and then we need to divide by t. Now looking at what we have here, we have an h and a negative k. So that rules out a, and that also rules out c. And then look at how it is written. What we have here is v equals h minus k divided by t plus 16t squared divided by t. Now that t squared divided by t, that is our rules of exponents. So that means we're going to subtract 2 minus 1. All right, same base. We're going to subtract the exponents. And so that is going to give us h minus k divided by t plus 16t. Answer choice D. All right. The cost of using a telephone in a hotel meeting room is 20 cents per minute. Which of the following equations represents the total cost C in dollars for h hours of phone use? So what we've got to do here, and this is just straight up interpreting the word problem, interpreting verbal to algebraic. So the cost C equals $0.20 per minute times the number of hours times 60 minutes per hour. And that all comes down to C equals 0.20, and the way it's, let's go with the way it's written up there, 60 times H, 60H. Answer choice A. In order to determine if treatment X is successful in improving eyesight, a research study was conducted. From a large population of people with poor eyesight, 300 participants were selected at random. Half of the participants were randomly assigned to receive treatment X, and the other half did not receive treatment X. The resulting data shows that participants who received treatment X had significantly improved eyesight as compared to those who did not receive treatment X. Based on the design and results of the study, which of the following is an appropriate conclusion? All right. So we have few of these types of questions on each SAT test that I've looked at. All right, so now we have to carefully read something like that and then carefully read each one of our choices. And there's really no math, it's just understanding logic and interpretation here. Treatment X is likely to improve the eyesight of people who have poor eyesight. All right, so let's look at the study. There was a large population of people with poor eyesight, and 300 out of that large population were chosen. All right, half of them received treatment X. All right, and now those who received treatment X had significantly improved eyesight as compared to those who did not receive it. So treatment X is likely to improve the eyesight of people who have poor eyesight. Let's just go ahead and underline A, but we want to read all of our answer choices. Treatment X improves eyesight better than all other available treatments. Well, there is no comparison to other treatments. What we're looking at in the text that is given to us right here is those who received treatment X and those who did not. All right, so it doesn't say anything about all other available treatments, okay? Treatment X will improve the eyesight of anyone who takes it. Well, no, it improved the eyesight of those who had poor eyesight. So it doesn't say anything about anyone who takes it. Treatment X will cause a substantial improvement in eyesight. Again, the study was on people who had poor eyesight, so they had to start off with poor eyesight. So it doesn't say anything about just causing a substantial improvement just in general. So that takes us back to A. It is likely to improve the eyesight of people who have poor eyesight. We've got to look at exactly the wording that's given. All right. Graphs of the functions f and g are shown in the xy plane above. For which of the following values of x does f of x plus f plus g of x equal 0? Well, in order for f of x plus g of x to equal 0, that means f of x has to equal negative g of x. So we have to look and find where f of x and g of x have the same value but the opposite sign. And we see that right here where, let me get them straight, here g of x equals 2 and f of x equals negative 2. And at what value is that? That is when x equals 1, negative 2. So B. All right, so just understanding function notation and, again, just general graphs, reading graphs. All right. The quantity of a product supplied and the quantity of the product demanded in an economic market are functions of the price of the product. The functions above are the estimated supply and demand functions for a certain product. The function S of P gives the quantity of the product supplied to the market when the price is P dollars, and the function D of P gives the quantity of the product demanded by the market when the price is P dollars. How will the quantity of the product supplied to the market change if the price of the product is increased by $10? That means we're looking at the function S of P equals 1/2 P plus 40. All right, so we have another linear equation. Our slope is 1/2. We see that 40 is our x-intercept, our constant. So if we increase, all right, the price by $10, okay, because we have a positive slope, an increase in price is going to increase the supply. So we can rule that out. Now, logically thinking, if we increase our price by $10, then the increase in supply is going to be 1/2 times 10, which equals 5. But let's carry it a little further. So if we increase the price by $10, we're looking at what is S of P plus 10. So that's going to equal 1/2 P plus 10 plus 40, which is equal to 1/2 P plus 5 plus 40, which equals 1/2 P plus 45. And we see that is, again, an increase of 5 units. We can rule out C and D, okay. At what price will the quantity of the product supplied to the market equal the quantity of the product demanded by the market? So this is an interpretation here. At what price will they equal? At what price will supply equal demand? So we want S of P to equal D of P, which means we want to just set these two equations equal to each other. Let's go ahead. 1/2 P plus 40 equals 220 minus P. I'm going to go ahead and just multiply through by 2 to clear that fraction. So we have P plus 80. All right, remember we got to multiply everything by 2 equals 440 minus 2P. And now let's go ahead. That means we're going to have 3P equals 360. So P is going to be $120. Graphene, which is used in the manufacture of integrated circuits, is so thin that a sheet weighing 1 ounce can cover up to 7 football fields. If a football field has an area of approximately 1 1/3 acres, about how many acres could 48 ounces of graphene cover? All right, so this is one where you got to make sure you are carefully reading the question. All right, we've got 1 ounce. We've got 7 football fields, 1 1/3 acres, and 48 ounces. So this is some type of like unit conversion. So let's hop into this. And I want to do this one this way. We have 1 ounce can cover 7 football fields, and each football field has approximately 1 1/3 acres. So 7 times 1 1/3 acres tells us what 1 ounce can cover. So we're going to take that 1 1/3 and call that 4/3 acres for 1 ounce. So that is 28 thirds. So 1 ounce can cover 28 thirds acres. And now we want to see how much can 48 ounces cover. All right, so that means we're going to say, what is 48 times 28 thirds? And we can divide that out. 3 goes into 48 16 times. So we want to know what is 16 times 28. And again, let's just use some mental math and estimations. All right, we can rule out 1,350. 16 times 28. Well, 28 is very close to 30. 16 times 30. Well, 16 times 3 is 48. So 16 times 30 is going to be 480. So we're looking for what is the number that's very close to 480, a little bit less, is 450. And yes, again, if you want to, go ahead, pop that into your calculator and see what it gives you. All right, so let's keep it moving. All right, ooh, yeah. Michael swam 2,000 yards on each of 18 days. The scatter plot above shows his swim time for and corresponding heart rate after each swim. The line of best fit for the data is also shown. For the swim that took 34 minutes, Michael's actual heart rate was about how many beats per minute less than the rate predicted by the line of best fit. All right, so let's look at reading lines of best fit. And then let's see, we're talking about for the swim that took 34 minutes. So here's our swim that took 34 minutes right here, this line. And we want to know Michael's actual heart rate was about how many beats per minute less than the rate predicted by the line of best fit. So we see the prediction by the line of best fit at 34 minutes was 150. So 150 minus, and it says his actual, well, is just the line, right? His actual is that one right there. So now reading the graph, that's 140. So that means 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So that means each block vertically is 2. So that is a difference of 2 units. 2 beats per minute less, okay. Of the following 4 types of savings account plans, which option would yield exponential growth of the money in the account? All right. So this is an understanding type problem here. Each successive year, 2% of the initial savings is added to the value of the account. All right, so that means our initial savings, S, at the end of each year, they're going to add 0.2S. That is not exponential growth. That is just adding a constant, because that initial does not change. Again, I'm just interpreting what it says, 2% of what was initially put in. Each successive year, 1.5% of the initial savings and $100 is added to the value of the account. So again, now we're saying that 1.5% of what was initially, and then just adding $100 to that. Again, that's a set amount that's being added each year. That is not exponential growth. Each successive year, 1% of the current value is added to the value of the account. Let's underline that. Each successive year, $100 is added to the value of the account. So again, that's just adding a constant amount each year. That is not exponential growth. And C is the correct answer, because now we're saying we're going to start with an amount. It has interest, and at the end of the year, 1% of that current value is added. And then the next year, 1% of the current value. So we're continuing to add to what is the current value. That is exponential growth. The sum of three numbers is 855. One of the numbers, x, is 50% more than the sum of the other two numbers. What is the value of x? So this is more like a straight up just word problem. Something you might find in like Algebra 1, where you're trying to interpret verbal into algebraic and then solve. So we know that, let's just say x plus y plus z equals 855. All right, that is the information we're given. The sum of the three numbers is 855. Make that look a little better. And it says x is 50% more than the sum of the other two numbers. So x is going to equal y plus z plus 50% more than that. So 1.5 times y plus z. Again, what we have to look at is 50% more than that sum means we have that sum plus 50% of that sum. And that is how we factor out that y plus z. So that's y plus z times 1 plus 0.5. So y plus z times 1.5. Now we are ready to move on. Now we have one equation with three unknowns simplified to one equation and all unknowns in terms of just one of those unknowns. So that gives us x plus x divided by 1.5 equals 855. And now we have 1.5x plus x. All right, we've got to get a common denominator. So multiply that first x times 1.5 over 1.5. Then we can add the two. Oops. That equals 855. And that's going to come down to, let's see, add 1.5. So 2.5x is going to equal 1282.5. Giving us an x value of 513. The angles shown above are acute, and sine of A degrees equals cosine of B degrees. If A equals 4k minus 22 and B equals 6k minus 13, what is the value of k? So we got to rely on our knowledge of trigonometry here. So we say we have two angles that are acute, and talking about sine and cosine. So what we have here is a right triangle, or we can put those two angles into a right triangle. A degrees, B degrees. And then what's going on here is cofunction identities, where we have in a right triangle, sine of A is going to equal cosine of 90 minus A. And in this case, B has to equal 90 minus A. Now that brings us down to saying that 4k minus 22 plus 6k minus 13 equals 90 degrees. And now that's going to give us 10k equals 125 So K equals 12.5. So that was one, again, that was something you just had to recognize quickly. Once it said acute angle, sine of A equaling cosine of B, drop your triangle and understanding the cofunction identities. Mr. Cole has a beaker containing N milliliters of solution to distribute to the students in his chemistry class. If he gives each student 3 milliliters of solution, he will have 5 milliliters left over. In order to give each student 4 milliliters of solution, he will need an additional 21 milliliters. How many students are in the class? Okay, so we have a nice, this one just general thinking type problem and working our way through algebraically and mathematically. Okay, so he has N milliliters in that solution. If he gives each student, so we want to know how many students. So 3 milliliters per student times S students plus 5, all right, because it equals N. All right, so let's look at that. We don't know how many students, but if he gives each one 3 milliliters, he will have 5 left over. So we need to add that 5 left over after the 3 times the number of students equals our N. All right, so if he wants to give each student 4 milliliters of solution, so now 4 times the number of students, he will need an additional 21. So he needs the number N plus 21. And we can rewrite this as N equals 4s minus 21. So now we can equate these two statements and say 3s plus 5 equals 4s minus 21. All right, now s is our unknown that we're solving for. And that'll give us 26 equals S. A grain silo is built from 2 right circular cones and a right circular cylinder with internal measurements represented by the figure above. Of the following, which is closest to the volume of the grain silo in cubic feet? Okay, now they do give you some of these volumetric formulas. So let's just go ahead. We've got the volume of a cylinder is, we'll say VL for cylinder, all right, is pi r squared h, and the volume of a cone, say Vn, all right, cylinder and cone, so neither one of them gets to use their proper first letter, is 1/3 pi r squared h. So the 2 cones and the cylinder, so we're looking for pi r squared h plus 2 times 1/3, so 2/3 pi r squared h. And then what, we're ready to plug and chug. So we're looking for, let's say, we've got, I'll just say pi r squared is 5, so 25 pi, and h is 10, plus 2/3 pi, and we still have r squared is 25, and now the h is 5. And then that will give us, let's see, approximately 1050. It's a little closer than that, but D. In the xy plane, the line determined by the points 2k and k32 passes through the origin. Which of the following could be the value of k? All right. Key point, statement right here, passes through the origin. So the line goes through the origin. And because it goes through the origin, that tells me we have a direct variation. And so there's our point. Neither one of those points is on the line. 2k. And then we have k32. Now with direct variation, we know direct variation means y equals kx, where k is the slope. since we have k in the problem, let's pick y equals cx, where c is the slope. It's a constant, which means y divided by x throughout the line is going to be a constant. So that means we've got y over x, so k divided by 2 equals y over x, 32 divided by k. And that's going to give us k squared equals 64, so k has to equal what? 8. Yeah. Now another way we could have approached this, since it tells us it passes through the origin, that means we know we have the point 0, 0 on the line. The slopes have to be the same, so we could have said y2 minus y1, so 0, k minus 0, divided by x2 minus x1, 2 minus 0. That has to equal 32 minus 0 divided by k minus 0, and hey, we come up with the same equation. Okay. A rectangle was altered by increasing its length by 10% and decreasing its width by p%. If these alterations decrease the area of the rectangle by 12%, what is the value of p? Okay, so this is one of those abstract type problems because we're not given a whole lot of numbers here, but we have to understand the topic. We have to understand the concept here. Okay, so let's just go ahead and say that if we have a rectangle, all right, we know that its area is equal to the length times the width. Let's call that A1. A1 is equal to the length times the width. Now the area 2, A2, it says we're increasing the length by 10%. So we're looking at 1.1 times L. All right, that increase of 10% is at 1.1. And that is multiplied by, we're decreasing the width by p%, so P times W. And that is equal to 0.88 times the area of A1. All right. So we decreased the area, the original area, by 12%. So this new one is 88% of that original area. Okay. Now we're going to have to substitute. All right. So we have 1.1 length times P times W equals 0.88 times, and that A1 is length times width. Now that's going to divide out length times width, and we get 1.1p equals 0.88. And now p equals 0.8, which equals 80%. So that p in that second area, we're looking at 80% of the original width. So that is a decrease of 20%. All right. Very important, again, so as I said at the beginning, read it carefully, make sure you understand what it's asking you, and how do I know when I have the correct answer. And again, once we got to p equals 0.8, that didn't match anything we had over there, so we had to properly interpret to know when we had the correct answer. Okay. In planning maintenance for a city's infrastructure, a civil engineer estimates that, starting from the present, the population of the city will decrease by 10% every 20 years. If the present population of the city is 50,000, which of the following expressions represents the engineer's estimate of the population of the city t years from now? So when we have an exponential equation with a decrease, that means the percent decrease is going to be our base. All right, so it will decrease by 10% every 20 years. So every 20 years, it's going to be 90% of what it was 20 years earlier. So the 0.9 is the base, not the 0.1. And the next part to that, the decrease is 10% every 20 years. So that means the 20 is going to be the denominator in our exponent. We're going to have a rational exponent with 20 as the denominator. And so it's going to be D. All right. The incomplete table above summarizes the number of left-handed students and right-handed students by gender for the 8th grade students at Keisel Middle School. There are 5 times as many right-handed female students as there are left-handed female students, and there are 9 times as many right-handed male students as there are left-handed male students. if there is a total of 18 left-handed students and 122 right-handed students in the school, which of the following is closest to the probability that a right-handed student selected at random is female? Note, assume that none of the 8th grade students are both right-handed and left-handed. Okay, that is a mouthful right there. So how are we going to get started? So let's start right here. There are 5 times as many right-handed female students as there are left-handed female students. So that means for whatever number of left-handed female students we have, the number right-handed is 5n. And it says there are 9 times as many right-handed male students. So let's say we have a number of male students who are left-handed, and then we have 9m. And now we have a system of 2 linear equations. We have n plus m equals 18, and we have 5n plus 9m equals 122. And now rearranging our first equation, we have n equals 18 minus m. Actually, we're looking for female, so female is n, so we want everything in terms of n. That means m is going to equal 18 minus n. So now we have 5n plus 9, 18 minus n equals 122. All right, so now we have negative 4n equals negative 40, so n equals 10. So I know I have 10 and 50 right here. Now what are we looking for? All right, so that means we also need to know that m is going to be 8, and that's going to be 72. So it says we want to pick a right-handed student is selected at random. So that's the population we're picking from. That's going to be our denominator. So a right-handed student picked at random. There are 122 right-handers. And what is the closest to the probability that the randomly selected student is a female? So we're picking from the right-handers, and we want the probability that it's female. So 50 of them are female. And that is approximately 0.41. All right. In the equations above, B and C are constants. If B is C minus 1/2, which of the following is true? Now, since it's giving us that substitution there, I'm going to go ahead and use that substitution so that my first equation is 3x plus, and then we have C minus 1/2 equals 5x minus 7, and then 3y plus c equals 5y minus 7. Now we can eliminate c, same sign subtract, so if we subtract these two equations, we'll get 3x minus 3y minus 1/2 equals 5x minus 5y, and then negative 7 minus negative 7 equals 0. All right, let's see. Let's move that over. So we're going to have, let's see, 3x minus 5x minus 3y plus 5y equals 1/2. And now let's see, combining our like terms, that is negative 2x plus 2y equals 1/2. Now looking at my answer choices, all of my answer choices start with x is, and is means equals. So I'm going to rewrite this as 2x equals 2y minus 1/2. Now dividing by 2, everything by 2, gives me x equals y minus 1/4. And that is answer choice A. And that brings us to the end of our multiple choice section. Next is our free response. Tickets for a school talent show cost $2 for students and $3 for adults. if Chris spends at least $11 but no more than $14 on X student tickets and 1 adult ticket, what is one possible value of X? Okay, this seems a bit like a system of equations or inequalities in this case, but what is $2 for students, $3 for adults. So he spent X student tickets. So we have $2 and then X, and that is plus 3 because he only bought 1 adult ticket. Now we need to interpret this. If he spends at least $11, that means greater than or equal to 11 is what he spent, which means 11 is less than or equal to that, but he spent no more than. So what he spent is less than or equal to 14. We want to know what is one possible value of X. Now let's go ahead and subtract that 3 on both sides. I'm going to solve these simultaneously. So that means 8 is less than or equal to 2x, less than or equal to 14 minus 3 is 11. That is going to give us 4 is less than or equal to x, less than or equal to 5.5. So one possible value for x is 4. And other possible value is 5. Either one of those answers, 4 or 5. The table above lists the ages of the first 12 United States presidents when they began their terms in office. According to the table, what was the mean age in years of these presidents at the beginning of their terms? All right, so solving for the mean, we're just going to straight up add all those ages and divide by 12. And that is 703 divided by 12, so we're saying approximately 58.6. All right, negative 3x squared plus 5x minus 2 times the quantity x squared minus 2x minus 1. If the expression above is rewritten in the form ax squared plus bx plus c, where a, b, and c are constants, what is the value of b? All right, so don't let the wording on this one throw you off. What we have here is negative 3x squared plus 5x minus 2, and then let's distribute that negative 2 across that second one. So then we're going to be adding, we have, that's a negative 2x squared plus 4x plus 2. Now we're in the form ax squared plus bx plus c, and we want to know what is the value of b. So b is our middle terms here, 9x, so b is equal to 9. In a circle with center O, central angle AOB has a measure of 5 pi over 4 radians. The area of the sector formed by central angle AOB is what fraction of the area of the circle? All right, so we need to understand circle geometry. So we have, that was a pretty good circle there. Center O, and the central angle is 5 pi over 4 radians. So 5 pi over 4 radians, say about right there. And the fact that it is a central angle tells us something key here, because the arc that is swept out is going to be equal to the angle measure there. All right. So what we have to look at is 5 pi over 4 is what fraction of the entire circle. So 5 pi over 4, we need to divide that by 2 pi, because 2 pi radians is the entire circle. So that gives us 5 pi over 4 times 1 divided by 2 pi. Our pi's are going to divide out, and that 5 pi over 4 is 5/8 of the entire circle, one rotation. So that means the area of that sector is going to be 5/8 the area of the circle. So 5/8 or 0.625. An online store receives customer satisfaction ratings between 0 and 100 inclusive. In the first 10 ratings the store received, the average arithmetic mean of the ratings was 75. What is the least value the store can receive for the 11th rating and still be able to have an average of at least 85 for the first 20 ratings? Okay, let's break this down. All right, so in the first 10, the average was 75. So that means in the first 10, that total score had to be 750. All right, so this is a kind of multi-step, multi-layer here. So we need, all right, so the first 10 had to be a total of 750 in order for that average to be 75. Now, if we want 85 for the first 20 ratings, then we need 20 times 85. We need it to be 1,700. All right. Now we need to interpret that. What is the least value the store can receive for the 11th rating? All right, so before we get to that, then that means we have to assume that on 12 through 20 was all perfect ratings. So that means let's just say 11. What is the minimum 11 can be, or the least value 11 can be, and then 12 through 20, that needs to be 900. All right, so all 9 of those have to be perfect. Then the other 10 takes it up to 19, and the 11th one makes it a total of 20. All right, so now what we have is that 750 plus X, or 11, plus 900, that totals up to 1,700. So X plus 1650 equals 1,700. That means X, the 11th rating, can have a minimum of 50. All right. In the xy plane, if a point with coordinates AB lies in the solution set of the system of inequalities above, what is the maximum possible value of B? All right, on this one, we need to understand graphs of inequalities. So if we have y less than or equal to negative 15x plus 3,000, all right. And then let's say we have y is less than or equal to, I did that the wrong way. There we go. And then our other one, y less than or equal to 5x. That means their point of intersection is going to give us the maximum possible value of b. All right, because b is our y coordinate. So their point of intersection is going to give us our maximum value of b, which means we're going to set those two inequalities equal to each other. So we have 5x equals negative 15x plus 3,000. So 20x equals 3,000. And gives us an x value of, all right, 150. Now remember what I said at the beginning. How do you know when you have the answer? It says we want to know what is the maximum value of b, which is the y coordinate. So we've got the maximum value of b is going to be, and we can put that 150 into either equation. So 5 times 150 is 750. That is the maximum value of b. If shoppers enter a store at an average rate of R shoppers per minute and each stays in the store for an average time of T minutes, the average number of shoppers in the store N at any one time is given by the formula N equals RT. This relationship is known as Little's Law. The owner of the Good Deals store estimates that during business hours, an average of 3 shoppers per minute enter the store and that each of them stays an average of 15 minutes. The store owner uses Little's Law to estimate that there are 45 shoppers in the store at any time. Little's Law can be applied to any part of the store, such as a particular department or the checkout lines. The store owner determines that during business hours, approximately 84 shoppers per hour make a purchase, and each of these shoppers spends an average of 5 minutes in the checkout line. At any time during business hours, about how many shoppers on average are waiting in the checkout line to make a purchase at the Good Deal store? All right, a lot of wording there, so let's go ahead and get into this. All right, looking at the information we have, so we're using our N equals RT, and the N is what we're solving for, all right, the number. So the number is going to equal, and what is R? R is the shoppers per minute. And we're talking about the line, so it's 84 shoppers per hour. So we want to divide that by 60 minutes per hour, okay? And then times the 5 minutes in the checkout line, so times 5. That is our T. And let's see, 84 over 60, we can divide out of 12, and that is 7/5. So N is going to equal 7/5 times 5, which equals 7. The owner of the Good Deals store opens a new store across town. For the new store, the owner estimates that during business hours, an average of 90 shoppers per hour enter the store, and each of them stays an average of 12 minutes. The average number of shoppers in the new store at any time is what % less than the average number of shoppers in the original store at any time? Note, ignore the % symbol when entering your answer. For example, if the answer is 42.1%, enter 42.1. All right, so a few things going on here. First thing we're going to get is N for the new store is going to equal 90 per hour, so 90 divided by 60 times 12 minutes each. And so that comes out to, let's see, 3/2 times 12 is 30. No, that's AT. I gotta get that 30. I don't know, AT. So N equals AT. All right, now the original store refers back to this right here, so 45. So our % different is we're going to have our new minus the original divided by the original times 100. And we're going to be taking the absolute value of that. And that comes out to 0.6 times 100, which is 60%, so just 60. All right, and there we have it. We are done with this one here. Good luck and keep on practicing.